The wind here does not merely blow, it possesses a voice, a low and ancient thrumming that vibrates through the very bedrock of the continent, a sound that has echoed across this white desert for 30 million years, long before human ears existed to hear it. Close your eyes and let your mind drift southward, past the green edges of the world, past the churning gray of the storm-tossed Southern Ocean, until the water turns to glass and the horizon disappears into a blur of diamond dust and pale blue light. We are entering the realm of the eternal winter, a place where the sun circles the sky like a wary watchman, afraid to set and afraid to rise, casting long violet shadows that stretch across the ice sheets for miles. In this vast, frozen cathedral, there exists a riddle, a physiological impossibility that has baffled biologists for decades. It is a question of energy and thermodynamics that should not add up. Consider this. There is a creature here that walks 70 miles into the heart of a frozen continent, facing temperatures that can freeze steel, and then stands perfectly still for 4 months without eating a single morsel of food, all while incubating a life that requires tropical warmth to survive. By all the known laws of metabolic biology, this creature should burn out. Its internal fire should be extinguished by the crushing cold and the calorie deficit within weeks. It should be impossible for a heart to keep beating, for blood to keep flowing, and for heat to be generated from nothing but shrinking reserves of fat in a landscape that steals heat with every gust of wind. How do they cheat death? How do they conjure energy from the void? Keep this question in the back of your mind as we walk into the white silence, for the answer lies hidden not in their strength, but in a secret, almost microscopic surrender that happens in the darkest hour of the polar night. To understand the Emperor, we must first understand the stage upon which they perform their silent opera. Antarctica is not just land. It is a creature in itself, expanding and contracting with the seasons. In the deep winter, the sea freezes, doubling the size of the continent, creating a skirt of ice that pushes the open ocean hundreds of miles away from the shore. It is a world of absolutes, absolute cold, absolute wind, absolute beauty. And yet, this was not always so. Cast your imagination back, deep into the geological past, 50, perhaps 60 million years ago. The air was thick and humid. This very ground, now buried under 2 miles of compacted snow, was a lush, temperate rainforest. Giant ferns unfurled their fronds in the warm breeze. Beech trees dropped their golden leaves into slow-moving rivers. It was here that the ancestors of the penguin made a choice that would seal their destiny. They were birds of the sky, capable of flight, soaring over the canopy. But the ocean teemed with life, a bounty of fish and krill that the sky could not match. Slowly, over thousands of generations, the lure of the deep pulled them down. Evolution is a slow sculptor, chipping away at what is no longer needed. The wings, once wide and spanned for catching updrafts, began to shorten. The hollow, lightweight bones, essential for flight, filled in, becoming solid and heavy, acting as ballast for diving. The feathers, once loose and airy, packed down into a dense, waterproof shield. They traded the freedom of the heavens for the mastery of the deep, becoming torpedoes of the ocean. But then, the world shifted. The continents drifted. Antarctica moved south, settling over the pole. The currents changed, isolating the landmass in a ring of freezing water. The forests died. The green turned to white. The warmth turned to ice. Most creatures fled or perished, unable to cope with the encroaching freeze. But the penguin stayed. They did not flee the ice. They became part of it. They evolved in lockstep with the cooling planet, wrapping themselves in layers of fat and feathers, turning into fortresses of biology. Now, look at the horizon. It is March. The Antarctic autumn is drawing to a close. The days are shortening, the light turning a bruised purple in the afternoons. The sea ice is hardening, forming a solid bridge to the interior. While the rest of the Antarctic life, the Weddell seals, the Adelie penguins, the skuas, are heading north toward the open water and the sun. A solitary line of black shapes emerges from the surf. They are doing the unthinkable. They are turning their backs on the ocean, their only source of food, and marching inland. This is the great procession of the emperor penguins. They are giants among seabirds, standing nearly 4 feet tall, regal in their tuxedo-like plumage, with a stroke of sunset orange fading into yellow on their necks. They land on the ice with a heavy thud, shaking the salt water from their coats, and begin to walk. The journey is arduous. They must travel 50, sometimes nearly 100 miles across the chaotic landscape of the ice shelf to reach their breeding grounds. Watch them move. It is a slow, rhythmic metronome. Left foot, right foot. They rock side to side, a motion that looks clumsy to the human eye, but is actually a masterpiece of efficiency. This pendulum motion allows them to recover nearly 80% of the energy from each step, storing it as potential energy for the next. When the snow becomes too deep and soft for walking, they drop onto their bellies, pushing with their powerful feet and using their flippers like ski poles, tobogganing across the white expanse. They move in silence, a long, sinuous thread of life stitched across the desolation. They are driven by an ancient instinct, a map etched into their genetic code that leads them to the Oamaru Formation or other sheltered valleys where the ice is fast, solid ground that will not break apart under the summer storms. They arrive as the twilight deepens. Thousands of birds congregate in the shadow of towering ice cliffs, a natural amphitheater for the drama to come. The noise is sudden and overwhelming, a cacophony of brays, trills, and cries as they seek out mates. But this is not a chaotic frenzy. It is a desperate search for partnership. In this environment, no single parent can raise a child. It requires a pact of absolute cooperation. A male and a female find each other. They stand breast to breast, bowing their heads, mirroring each other's movements in a graceful, slow-motion dance. They sing to one another, learning the unique frequency of the other's voice, a sound they will need to recognize later in a crowd of thousands within the pitch-black darkness. This bond is forged in the face of the encroaching winter. As May arrives, the temperature plummets to -30 degrees. The female lays a single egg. It is a masterpiece of calcium, a fragile vessel containing the spark of the next generation. But here, on the ice, the egg is a ticking clock. If it touches the freezing ground for even a minute, the embryo inside will crystallize and die. The female is exhausted. The production of the egg has cost her nearly a third of her body weight. She has not eaten in weeks. She must leave. She must return to the ocean to feed, or she will die. This leads to the most delicate and dangerous maneuver in the animal kingdom, the transfer. Picture the scene. The female stands with the egg balanced on her feet, kept warm by a fold of bare, vascular skin on her belly called the brood patch. The male stands facing her, ready to accept the burden. With agonizing slowness, she rolls the egg off her feet and onto the ice. The male must immediately scoop it up. He extends his beak, guiding the ivory sphere onto his own feet, shuffling forward to cover it with his own warm fold of skin. There are moments of panic, clumsy fumbles where the egg wobbles on the brink of the freezing abyss, but the instinct is strong. Once the male has the egg secure, the female turns away. There is no lingering goodbye. The biological imperative drives her toward the sea. The males watch them go, a stream of sleek backs disappearing into the gloom. And then they are alone. The sun sets for the last time. The long polar night begins. This is where the true test begins. The males are now fathers and guardians, standing on an endless plain of ice, holding the most precious cargo in the world. The temperature drops further, -40, -50. The wind begins to howl, the katabatic winds that fall from the high plateau like an avalanche of air, reaching speeds of 100 miles per hour. The wind chill creates conditions that are alien to life. A human being, even in heavy gear, would freeze in minutes. The penguins cannot run, they cannot hide in burrows, they cannot fly away. They have only one defense: each other. As the storm rises, the colony undergoes a transformation. The individuals cease to act as separate entities and merge into a single, giant organism. They form the Huddle. Imagine a tortoise shell made of thousands of living bodies. They pack together, shoulder to shoulder, back to chest, compressing themselves into a density so tight that not a breath of wind can pass between them. They lower their heads, tucking their beaks into their chest feathers to preserve warmth. But a huddle is not a static pile. If it were, the birds on the windward side, exposed to the fury of the blizzard, would freeze to death, while those in the center would overheat. And so the huddle rotates. It is a slow, churning motion, invisible to the naked eye in real time. The birds on the outer edge, their backs caked in ice, slowly shuffle along the flank of the group, seeking the shelter of the leeward side. Inch by inch, they peel off the frozen exterior and work their way into the depths of the mass. Those who were warm in the center are gradually pushed outward, taking their turn to face the storm. It is a democracy of suffering and warmth, a continuous cycle of sacrifice. In the center of the huddle, the temperature can rise to a tropical 37 degrees Celsius. Steam rises from the mass of bodies, a ghostly pillar in the dark. But outside, the world is ending. The darkness is absolute. The wind screams, and here we return to the mystery, the trap we set at the beginning of our journey. How does the male penguin, standing there for 60, 70, 90 days, survive? He is burning calories to keep his body warm. He is burning calories to keep the egg warm. He is not eaten. His stomach is empty. By all logic, his reserves should fail. The answer lies in a biological marvel known as metabolic depression. It is not quite hibernation, but it is a step toward the void. Deep within the huddle, when the male is warm and protected by his brothers, he allows his body to shut down. He enters a state of deep torpor. He lowers his heart rate to a fraction of its normal rhythm, sometimes as few as 5 beats per minute. He cools his body temperature, abandoning the warmth of his extremities to keep only the core and the egg alive. But the true secret is in how he fuels this fire. Most starving animals eventually burn through their fat and begin to digest their own muscle, their proteins, which produces toxic waste products that require water to flush out. But the penguin cannot eat snow to get water. That would cool him down too much. So his body switches to a unique metabolic pathway that recycles his own protein waste. He becomes a closed loop, a perfectly efficient engine that wastes nothing. He exists in a twilight state between sleep and wakefulness, floating in a gray dream of endurance. He is not fighting the cold, he is waiting it out, suspending his own life to preserve the life on his feet. He becomes a ghost in the shell of a bird, hovering on the edge of existence. Months pass in this dark dream. The males lose nearly half their body weight. Their feathers lose their sheen. They are gaunt, ragged shadows of the majestic birds that arrived in March. But then, a subtle shift occurs in the universe. A faint glow appears on the horizon, a smudge of indigo that hints at the return of the sun. And with the light comes a sound, a tiny, high-pitched chirp. Beneath the fold of skin, the egg is cracking. The chick is chipping away at its limestone prison. It is born into a world of feet and feathers, a gray ball of fluff that has never seen the sky. The father is exhausted, at the very limit of his endurance. He has nothing left to give, and yet he summons one last miracle. From a specialized gland in his esophagus, he secretes a milky, protein-rich substance, a curd, that he feeds to the chick. It is his last reserve, a final gift of his own body to sustain the new life for just a few days more. He looks toward the horizon, desperate. If the female does not return now, both he and the chick will die. And then the silence is broken, not by the wind, but by a distant cry. Far away, at the edge of the ice, the females are returning. They have spent the winter in the open ocean, diving deep, gorging on krill and silverfish. They are fat, sleek, and bursting with energy. They slide across the ice, driven by the memory of the song they heard months ago. They reach the colony, which is now a chaotic nursery of noise. The female sings. The male, weak and starving, listens. He recognizes the voice. He calls back. They find each other in the crowd. The reunion is brief but intense. The female sees the chick for the first time. She takes over the duty, sliding the chick onto her feet, covering it with her warm brood patch. She regurgitates a belly full of food for the hungry infant. The male is released. His watch is ended. He is free. But he is a skeleton. He must now make the long, agonizing walk back to the sea to feed. He stumbles, slides, and pushes himself toward the water, a hero of the ace leaving the stage. The cycle continues. As the spring warms the continent, the ice begins to break up. The water comes closer to the colony. The chicks grow rapidly, gathering in creche, gangs of young birds, while both parents hunt. They shed their gray down, revealing the sleek, waterproof feathers of adulthood. By December, the height of the Antarctic summer, the ice edge has reached the colony. The young penguins, now fully grown, stand at the water's edge. They have never swum. They do not know what lies beneath the surface. But the ancient call is there. One by one, they dive. The water is shocking, cold, and liberating. They are no longer clumsy walkers. They are flying. They shoot through the blue depths, chasing the light, masters of a world we can only imagine. The winter is over. The struggle has been won. And as you drift into sleep, remember the guardians of the ice, standing still in the darkness, holding the fire of life against the cold, waiting for the sun that always, eventually, returns.